So just go for it. Just try to be as quiet and as minimal as possible, but you might just have to speak something. And yes, that says emergency exit, alarm will sound if you won't. But just make sure you don't just fling it open. But thank you so much for coming, and I hope you enjoy it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending this afternoon's performance of the Red-Throated League, and the adventure of the Missing Heiress. Please turn your cell phones to silent. Turn your calendars back to 1949, and turn your imaginations to when it is always 1895.
The Red-Throated League and the makers of Clippercraft clothes for men and 924 leading retail stores from coast to coast present the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. And so once again, we find ourselves in Dr. Watson's cheerful firelit study. Outside, a cutting October wind scurries the brittle leaves, but inside, all snug and cozy with his feet on the well-polished fender, sits our favorite host and storyteller.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Harris, thank you.
And which of Holmes's fabulous adventures are we to have tonight, sir?
Well, tonight is the case of Missing Heiress. A Canadian heiress, to be exact, pert and pretty as a picture, with a mind of her own. I'll never forget her father's expression when he discovered the compromising situation. Well, there I go, getting ahead of myself. As usual, don't look so worried, Mr. Harris. I hadn't forgotten. This is where we say a few words on behalf of a very generous sponsor.
Fair enough, Dr. Watson. And speaking of finery, I'd like to say a bit on that subject too. Finery, masculine style outfits. Clippercraft clothes are just about as fine as can be made, and so modestly priced. Even Mr. Holmes would be stunned at how it's done. But it's elementary, dear Watson. It's the famous Clippercraft plan, wherein 924 leading stores from coast to coast concentrate their buying power, assuring you of great savings in manufacturing and distribution costs. As a result, you get the benefit of group buying, plus the friendly, personal attention you expect at your own local independent store. Clippercraft's extraordinary value is obvious once you order them. For where else indeed can you find expensive-looking suits like Clippercraft's at only $30 and $40? There are a few deluxe models too at $43.75. Top coats and overcoats are only $30 to $40, and sports jackets are only $34. Yes, solving your clothes problem is easy this fall. Just this clue: compare Clippercraft with clothes selling for many dollars more.
And Mr. Harris, to our story, the case of the Missing Heiress. Put your boots on that fender. Make yourself comfortable.
Perfect combination. A crackling fire to warm one's feet and a hair-raising adventure to chill one's spine.
Oh, sounds rather like one of those compounded hot and cold shower baths, the curse of this modern age. In the good old Baker Street days, one made one's morning ablutions in a tin tub. It was filled from a pair of steaming hot water tubs.
One got in and out as fast as possible without freezing to death, eh, Dr. Watson?
Only in the winter time, Mr. Harris. Only in the winter. I remember one bright July afternoon in the year... never mind. It was before you were out of your cradle. But anyway, I was splashing about in my morning tub.
I thought you said it was afternoon.
Well, when one shares lodgings and adventures with the great Sherlock Holmes, one frequently took one's morning tub in the afternoon, in the evening. Where was I?
Splashing around in your morning tub in mid-afternoon.
Yes, as a matter of accuracy, I was just removing the soap from the back of the ears and giving a not very inspired rendition of the current comic opera hit. when Holmes burst in rather unceremoniously. A wandering minstrel I, a thing of shreds and patches, of ballads, songs, and snatches.
Say it, Watson. Stop that caterwauling and throw on a bathrobe. We are about to have a caller, and I'm sure it means another case.
And why should that interrupt my bath? You are quite capable of handling the first stages of any case by yourself.
Not when it concerns a lady in hysterics and a court train. You're much better than I at managing female agitation.
Holmes, what are you raving about?
An elegant carriage has just galloped up to our curbstone, and without waiting for the footman to alight from the box and assist her, a middle-aged creature in full court regalia, complete to the feathers in her hair, bursts out into the street and is even now pulling our front doorbell out by the roots. Aha! Mrs. Hudson has let her in. She's coming up the stairs. Now, will you throw on a bathrobe and come out and protect me?
Certainly not.
Very well, then. I shall be obliged to usher her in here.
No! Great Scott, wait! Oh, all right, I'm coming. Good Lord, look at me. Dripping all over the carpet. A fine way to greet a lady.
Don't worry. Unless I'm greatly mistaken, she's too upset to notice. Here, tie the cord around your middle, and you're trying to put your slippers on the wrong feet.
Confound it!
Come in!
Mr. Holmes! Oh, Mr. Holmes, thank heavens I find you at home.
It's Lady Maynooth.
Oh, Dr. Watson, delighted to see you. Could you give me a glass of sherry, or a sedative, or something? Oh, this is terrible. I'm ruined. And the poor girl. Oh, Mr. Holmes, you must find her. You must.
Of course, Lady Maynooth. But first, perhaps you'd better tell us the name of this damsel in distress, and inform us just what difficulty she seems to be in.
But that's just it. I haven't the remotest idea. Oh, I don't mean I don't know her name. It's Elizabeth Bascom.
Not Miss Lizzie Bascom. The only child of old Harold Buyer Bascom, the Canadian Copper King.
That's right, Dr. Watson.
Well, she's quite the belle of the season, I rather gather.
Yes, Elizabeth has certainly been popular. Not that it's made the slightest impression on her.
Well, perhaps that's what explains her popularity.
That and her father's millions. But why are you so concerned about Miss Elizabeth Bascom, Lady Maynooth?
It has been my responsibility to sponsor the young lady through her first London season, to see that she makes the proper social connections. And, well, her father is bound and determined that she shall marry into the nobility.
I had no idea that George Bascom, more often referred to as Hellfire, was one of your acquaintances, Lady Maynooth.
Oh, to be quite frank, I do feel I had best be frank with you, Mr. Holmes. I've never set eyes on Elizabeth's father, but a mutual friend, knowing that he was anxious to have her received in the best circles, and also knowing that my own financial position has not been too secure, well, I was, shall we say, persuaded to take Elizabeth under my wing.
I hope you made a profitable arrangement.
I did, Mr. Holmes, but I've earned it, every penny.
Do you mean to say that the young lady is uncouth, in spite of her great beauty?
No, Dr. Watson. The truth forces me to admit that Elizabeth is really quite presentable and even lovable when not crossed.
But when she is crossed, she takes after her father?
Exactly. She insists on going for solitary walks, completely unchaperoned. She will strike up acquaintances with the most unlikely people.
Democratic, eh, Holmes?
It might be considered democratic in an ordinary female, but where a young woman of Miss Bascom's wealth is concerned, it's rather dangerous.
How true. We've been receiving, well, not exactly threats, but certainly cranky letters ever since it became known that Elizabeth had come to stay with me. But Elizabeth absolutely refuses to pay me into her own danger. She says she's been handling situations of that sort all her life, and she refuses to become perturbed about it at this late date. And now, it's happened.
What has?
Well, that is, I finally persuaded her to take an interest in young Lord Weaverbrook, a very suitable match in every way. In fact, her father is arriving on the next boat in order to announce the engagement.
Well, surely there's nothing to be upset about.
Yes, but what is he going to do when he finds his daughter has been abducted?
Abducted? By abductors?
Yes, this note was pinned to the carriage seat when I returned and found Elizabeth gone.
I gathered from your costume, Lady Maynooth, that you were on your way to Buckingham Palace.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. After considerable maneuvering, I had arranged to have Miss Baskin received at court. It took a bit of doing, and I admit I expected trouble with Elizabeth. However, she fell in with the plan with quite a show of alacrity, even standing patiently for endless fittings of her train and taking lessons in how to make a court bow.
Well, you know, I've often wondered how one managed that.
Don't interrupt, Watson. Go on, Lady Maynooth. Today, I take it, was the day.
Yes, and more perfect weather one couldn't have wished for. And I must say, Elizabeth seemed to be in high spirits. We were well prepared with the usual hamper of wine and sandwiches and cake. You know that interminable wait outside the St. James's Park.
You know, I've always thought that the sight of the beautiful ladies in their full regalia on the way to a court luncheon is one of the great sights of London.
Elizabeth seemed to share your opinion, Dr. Watson. At any rate, she seemed in unusually high spirits as the other carriages crowded around us.
What fun, Lady Maynooth. It's even more exciting than a regatta. All the street musicians and the crowds passing on the sidewalks as if we were a parade, all waving and cheering and calling to us.
There she goes! That's Lizzie Frisco! She's the prettiest one here! Hurrah for Lizzie!
Elizabeth, my dear, one doesn't wave it, but it's not done.
I'm sorry.
Cover your flowers with a napkin, my dear. The sun is really becoming rather aggressive.
If you ask me, it's darn hot.
Hooray for the beautiful Lizzie!
Now, Elizabeth, you mustn't smile back. It only encourages them.
But why shouldn't I smile? I'm so happy.
Just control yourself another moment, my dear, and we'll be inside the gates where the crowd come follow us.
Oh, then we're nearly there.
Oh, heavens no, it takes ages. Even after you're in the courtyard. Oh, yes, here we go. Oh, that's better. Now, let's see what's in our luncheon hamper. I'll admit I'm half starved.
Oh, no. Let's wait. I'm still so excited. Oh, Lady Maynooth, look. Who's that handsome man walking among the carriages and sticking his head into some of them?
Oh dear, I wish I couldn't. His mother would be so put out if she knew he were out here, but they will do it, all the boys. They say it's much more fun when it is inside.
Oh, Lady Maynooth, he's coming this way. He's going to stop.
Oh, so this is the carriage that's been causing all the commotion. I know, wonder. Hello there.
Hello yourself.
Well, that's refreshing. So this is the beautiful Lizzie who set this town by its ears. Oh, Lady Maynooth. I didn't notice you at first. Would you by any chance have some smelling salts? The Dowager Duchess of Kiel seemed rather wonky as I passed the barouche. I wonder if you'd come and take a look at her.
Why, of course, certainly. Let's see, where did I put the smelling salts?
In your reticule, Lady Maynooth.
Oh, yes, of course. I'll be right back. And Elizabeth,
Yes, Lady Maynooth?
if that gentleman should return, be sure you address him as Your Highness. And that, Mr. Holmes, was the last I saw of Elizabeth Bascom. She was abducted. Abducted broad daylight right there in the courtyard of Buckingham Palace.
Well, Holmes, you don't think it was done by the principal, but royal? Been known to pull some rather spectacular pranks.
No member of the House of Hanover, Dr. Watson, would write this note, which was pinned to the cushion of the seat directly behind the box.
May I see Lady Maynooth?
Of course, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, this whole affair was undoubtedly planned in advance.
What makes you say that, Holmes?
The words are printed in ink, large, bold lettering, and the paper has been folded. Furthermore, there's a rather carefully executed dusky palm print in the lower left-hand corner.
Oh, but what is the message? What does it say?
The words of a communication of this sort are always the least enlightening part of the epistle, Watson. But just to satisfy your curiosity, I'll read them to you.
How kindly.
We have kidnapped Lizzie. If you know what's good for her, don't tell the cops. Signed, The Black Hand.
Aha! A band of American cutthroats. The words kidnapped and cops are a dead giveaway. I've heard of these Black Hand fellows.
Oh, dear.
We can only hope her father will arrive in time to pay the ransom demand.
Oh, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, we may be dealing with a band of cutthroats and desperados, but let's not jump to any conclusions, Watson, until we have examined the scene of the crime.
You mean to expect to find clues in all that turmoil in the courtyard of Buckingham Palace?
No, Watson, the scene of the crime is much closer than that. It is, in fact, drawn up to our curb. I allude, of course, to Lady May's carriage.
Well, I see what you mean. I hadn't even thought of that. Well, come along. What are we waiting for?
For you to go and put on some trousers, Watson.
Whoa, Jonathan! Easy, Penelope!
Handsome horses you have, Lady Maynooth.
This is Horace, Mr. Holmes. Horace has been our footman for over 50 years.
Man and boy, that's the truth.
A record to be proud of, Horace, in these troubled times.
Hey?
He's a little deaf, Mr. Holmes. It's his age.
I said, you've a fine record, Horace.
I have that.
If you'll open the door, please, Horace. Mr. Holmes is a detective. He'd like to inspect the carriage.
I know Mr. Holmes' mum. Everybody knows Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Horace, when did you first become aware that Miss Bascom was not in the carriage?
When her ladyship come back and found your note.
You didn't see her or hear anything unusual before that?
I did not. Henry, he's our coachman, had gone off to help Lord Brunsey, who was having trouble with his horses. And I had my hands full holding our horses. But I handled them. A stout fellow, Horace. I'm Horace. Besides which, I'm a big thief. Not that you've noticed, but it keeps me from hearing things.
I'm afraid Horace is but a broken reed in this affair.
What's that?
I said, thank you, Horace. Well, let's have a look inside the carriage. Give me my magnifying glass, Watson. Yes, interesting. Very interesting.
Oh, what have you found, Holmes? Bloodstains?
On the contrary, there is not the slightest indication of a struggle. Either Miss Bascom left the carriage of her own free will, or she was lured out of it by someone she considered a friend. Very significant. Very.
Significant, Holmes? Hardly useful.
Yes, here is her parasol, neatly furled. Surely, if she'd been attacked, she'd have attempted to use it as a weapon. And the luncheon hamper, neatly placed in the corner. Open the lid, Watson.
Oh, very well.
What's up?
The silly thing is empty. Not even a crumb left.
The blackguards! They not only abducted my ward, they stole my lunch as well! The pound cake had to be cut into!
The scoundrels! Well, Holmes, I'm afraid we've really drawn a blank. No clues. No clues at all.
Not so fast, Watson. Here is a long thread of heavy silk. Lady Maynooth, has Miss Lizzie by any chance a garment with blue fringe in her wardrobe?
Oh, yes, of course, the pettering that goes over a puce walking suit. But what has that to do with the case? She was wearing full court regalia when she was abducted.
Well, that's what makes all this so preposterous. You couldn't possibly kidnap a lady in that attire.
No van or lorry is permitted in Buckingham Palace courtyard.
You are both correct. Hello, here's something in the side pocket of the hamper.
Why, that's Elizabeth Bennet, her guidebook. She was always sneaking off by herself with that under her arm. From the number of times it happened, she must have been visiting all the sights of London.
Not all, Lady Maynooth. I fancy Miss Elizabeth rather specialized in the British Museum.
How do you arrive at that conclusion?
The rest of the volume is rather stiff, showing very few of the pages have been read. But notice how readily the book opens at the portion describing the British Museum. And here, the paragraphs describing the famous Elgin marbles. That page is decidedly dog-eared.
The Elgin marbles? Good heavens, I had no idea Elizabeth was a connoisseur of art.
I fancy Miss Elizabeth is a connoisseur of many things of which you had no idea, Lady Maynooth.
Oh dear, what do we do now? I suppose we'd better consult Scotland Yard.
I rather fancy that a certain Mr. Percy Smithers will prove more helpful in this matter. I suggest that Watson and I pay him a visit.
Percy Smithers? Who in thunder is he?
The famous archaeologist and authority on Greek and Roman relics. He is also curator of the Elgin marbles. Here we are, Watson, the British Museum. Imposing, if somewhat moth-eaten old mausoleum. Eh, what?
Oh, he pointed out to me as if I'd never laid eyes on it before. I had an uncle whose idea of entertaining his various visiting nephews was to trail them throughout the British Museum.
Open the door, Watson.
I can't. It's stuck. Well, never mind. Here comes an attendant. Guard, the entrance seems to be a bit bulky. You can't get it open, don't you know?
And why would you? It's locked up for the night. Closing time was 20 minutes ago.
Well, then I guess we won't get to see the marbles today, huh, Holmes?
I'm not particularly interested in the marbles, Watson. Guard, can you tell me if Mr. Smithers, curator Percy Smithers, is still on the premises?
Oh, no, sir. He's gone home.
You saw him leave?
He always leaves 5 minutes before closing time.
I don't suppose you can give us his home address.
I can do better than that, sir. There'd be over there. First house across the quadrangle.
The one with the bay window?
That's right.
Thank you. Come along, Watson.
Do you know this fellow Smithers, Holmes?
Only slightly, Watson. I've met him at the Diogenes Club from time to time when I've gone there to see my brother Mycroft. Like all the rest of the members, he's what you might call taciturn.
Grumpy old professor type.
Professorial and grumpy, I grant you, but he is certainly not old. In fact, Mr. Percy Smithers looks not unlike the Greek statues he's such an authority on. Only with more clothing, of course.
Well, yes, I can remember that there were many elderly ladies who came up with a petition demanding that draperies be put on all the marbles when they first went on exhibit. Ridiculous. They're just fine, just as they are.
Then you've seen the Elgin marbles?
Oh, many times.
You recall a statue of Perseus?
Perfectly.
Could you describe his attitude?
Well, I can do better than that. I can duplicate it. He is standing somewhat like this.
Not bad, except the positions of the left and right hand should be reversed.
Because your friend took a fit, sir?
Certainly not. I was just, that is, I was explaining something and stop following us.
I wasn't following, sir. I was just going home to be supper.
Well, here we are at Mr. Smithers' door. Ring the bell, Watson. That's a good fellow.
Always giving orders. Well, I'm sorry, I still don't understand what information you expect to gather from the curator of the British Museum about a missing Canadian heiress.
You never know, Watson. You never know.
Aye, and what might you be wanting?
We've come to see Mr. Smithers, Mr. Percy Smithers.
Well, you come to see him.
I'm sorry to disturb him if he's having supper, but this matter is rather urgent.
You can't see him because he's not come home. As for his supper, it's been burnt to a crisp waiting for him. And a fine trout it was too that he ordered special.
What a pity. Perhaps you could tell me if a young lady in a blue and puce walking suit has called on Mr. Smithers lately?
Certainly not. Mr. Smithers is a respectable man, and one of the shyest I ever did see besides.
Well, once again, we draw a blank. This case seems to be leading nowhere but down blind alleys.
On the contrary, Watson, the fact that Mr. Smithers did not come home for his supper is decidedly revealing.
You don't think he's been forcibly kidnapped, too, by the same outfit that abducted Miss Smithers?
No, I don't think there are any indications of kidnapping. At least, I doubt that any force was used.
Of course, how stupid I've been. Mr. Smithers and Miss Bascom have eloped.
Watson, the incurable romanticist. No, Watson, a bachelor, myself excepted of course, might conceivably have changed his mind. But no ardent lover would order trout, a single trout, for supper, on the day on which he expected to run off with his inamorata.
But where does all of that get us?
Whatever detained Percy Smithers was unexpected, entirely unexpected. Come, let's go home before our supper has been burnt to a crisp.
Holmes, how can you possibly think of food when we haven't even rescued Miss Bascom from heaven knows what sort of danger?
Whatever danger Miss Lizzie is in, I rather imagine she enjoys it. Yes, there is nothing further we can do until tomorrow at 8:30.
Why 8:30?
That is the time they unbar the entrance to the British Museum. Yes, we shall be waiting at 8:22.
When you know the low prices of Clippercraft clothes, you're apt to be puzzled. How do they do it, you say? Well, the solution's no mystery at all once you know the facts. What makes them great values is the Clippercraft plan, concentrating the buying power of 924 leading stores across the nation. Yes, remember that you buy these famous clothes at your favorite local store, where you're treated as a person, not just another number on a sales check. These days, practically everything you buy costs more, but not so with Clippercraft. You can select your fall Clippercraft suit at only $35 and $40, with a few special numbers at $43.75. Clippercraft top coats and overcoats too are only $30 to $40. Sports jackets but $24. Selling expensive clothes at inexpensive prices at the nation's finest independent stores is the great big idea behind the Clippercraft plan. That's why men who know insist on Clippercraft clothes. So be sure to visit the Clippercraft store in your city.
345 West Kellogg Boulevard, St. Paul, Minnesota.
That is the store where courteous and friendly service are always yours. The store that is proud to add its fine name to that of Clippercraft clothes in the label of your suit, top coat, sport jacket, and overcoat. Remember, not every pattern is always available in your size, but keep on trying. It will pay you to wait for Clippercraft clothes.
Well, it's 8:25, Holmes. Another 5 minutes and we shall know if your guess is right.
I never guess, Watson.
Holmes, isn't that Lady Maynuth's carriage coming down the street at a full gallop?
Yes, Mrs. Hudson must have told her she would find us here. Yes, here she comes, like a ship under full sail.
Who's that odd little red-faced man that's with her?
I rather imagine Papa Bascom has arrived.
That rat, that dead, plastic dead bird! So, you're Sherlock Holmes. Why in blazes have you not found my daughter?
I was right, Watson. It is Hellfire Bascom. Good morning, Lady Maynuth.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, the most horrible news. The most horrible, horrible news.
They haven't found a body.
No. First of all, when I returned home last evening, my butler informed me that all the sandwiches, the wine and the cake had been found in the jardiniere of my best aspidistra. The cook is so insulted she threatens to leave.
Yes, I rather suspected that hamper held something more interesting than food.
That's not all. Tell him the worst.
Well, this morning, before I'd even had time for my morning tea, Lord Brunsey's man returned Elizabeth's court gown and feathers. They'd been found in his carriage.
The scoundrel!
Oh, he wasn't in it at the time. He was still at the reception when his coachman delivered the dress.
But that makes matters even worse. The poor girl was abducted in her petticoats.
Her reputation will be ruined.
Blast her reputation, ma'am!
She'll catch her death cold.
Calm yourself, Mr. Bascom. I think I may be able to return your daughter with both her health and her reputation moderately intact. Yes, they're opening the doors now. If you will follow me
Into the British Museum?
Calm yourself, Mr. Bascom. A little culture is quite harmless, I assure you. Ah, the guard. I believe you are about to unlock the hall to the Elgin Marbles. Mind if we watch?
Not if it'll give you any amusement, but I'm locked it for years now, and it's never been what you might call fascinating.
Today, I think you may be in for a surprise.
Seeing is believing. Oh, it's about time. Where the devil were you last night? Didn't you hear me shouting?
Smithers! Professor! You've been locked in with them marble statues all night long?
And one that wasn't marble.
Lizzie! What in thunder are you doing here?
Yes, and wearing the puce and blue walking suit.
Papa! Well, what do you know? Papa, I want you to meet Mr. Percy Smithers, the famous scientist, and your future son-in-law.
Scientist? I wouldn't let you marry a scientist if he were the last man on Earth!
But Papa, we've been locked up together all night. Think of my reputation.
Why, you scoundrel! You planned all this! You lured my innocent little girl into a trap!
Oh, Papa, don't be silly. I was the one that trapped Percy. I planned it all. I picked yesterday because all the crowds would be at Buckingham Palace and the museum would be empty.
You packed your walking suit in the food hamper, changed in Lord Munsey's carriage, and headed for the British Museum.
The hardest part was fascinating Percy, so he wouldn't notice it was closing time. As a matter of fact, it wasn't as hard as I expected. You see, I suspected Percy, well, liked me, but I couldn't get him to propose.
She's too confounded rich.
Look here, my boy. You'll marry her now if I have to get out my old shotgun.
All right. I'd rather wanted to anyway, but only on one condition.
What's that, dead plastic?
She has to promise to live within my.
Darling.
That was all she wanted to know.
And did Lizzie live in her husband's income, Dr. Watson?
Well, more or less, at least. But if Papa gives her presents from time to time, Percy never really needed to know.
How did Elizabeth and her archaeologist get along?
Well, splendidly, you see, Hellfire backed several expeditions for the British Museum. And curiously enough, Percival Smithers generally headed it. Fine, splendid work he did too. So when he was finally knighted, and Lizzie became Lady Elizabeth, everyone said that she had more than earned the title.
And now, Dr. Watson, how about a hint about next week's hair raiser?
Well put, next week's hair raiser is a bit of a hell raiser, Mr. Harris, in more ways than one. It concerns a gentleman who had an unusually florid, I might say even crimson head of hair. And he was hired for a decidedly curious job just on that account. Fortunately, he reported the fact to Holmes, who subsequently prevented one of the most daring crimes in banking history.
Of course! It is the famous adventure of the Red-Headed League.
How did you guess, Mr. Harris? Now, How did you ever guess?
Makers of Clippercraft clothes and 924 leading retail stores from coast to coast have brought you another of the new series of broadcasts featuring the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes was originally produced and directed by Basil Lafray, and our stories are written by Edith Meiser with special music by Albert Berman. Holmes, played by John Stanley, and Dr. Watson by Alfred Shirley in the original production. If you don't know your Clippercraft dealer, write Clippercraft at 200 Fifth Avenue, New York City. Be sure to listen next week to Sherlock Holmes and the Adventure of the Red-Headed Lead. Broadcast right here on
KRTL.
If you wish to attend these Sherlock Holmes broadcasts, see your local Clippercraft dealer or any member of the Norwegian Explorers of Minnesota, and they will tell you how to obtain tickets. For Clippercraft clothes, this is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. I hope some of you are staying in St. Paul for some of the Winter Festival events later. We are striking the set, which, as you see, is right here. So please be careful, watch your step on the way out, and thank you again for joining us this afternoon. You all right?
See what's going on. How
Oh, did you? Okay, cool. How are you? Good. Good. Oh my gosh. Did you come visit someone? My brother, yeah.
Hi. We're neighbors, Pat and Kim.
Oh, nice to see you.
I'll introduce you to my husband.
Oh yeah, that'd be We had fun. Good turnout. We had. All of us had a weasel our way in. It was full. Did you have to pull some strings?
Yeah, so this gentleman is interested in the Norwegian Explorers.
I'm the president actually. Nice to meet you. Go out to Norwegian Explorers.com, but .org.
Well, I don't think they should have.
Sign up or join there. It's $20. It's one up to $5. But next year, this year, it's $20. And then you get
Have you been to the exhibit? No, well, in Ohio. So that we went to graduation in New York. We stopped in Ohio.
They said the library.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through it too. I think it's all.
And then everything.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yes, we're gonna go through it. Good. All right. We'll see you out there. Yeah, we'll be out there. Okay. All right. Thanks for coming. Of course, this was very fun.
We have about 150 members. One of the biggest. You'll have lots of company. No. The only reason we're named the Norwegian Explorers is because Sherlock Holmes did after he he disguised himself as a Norwegian named Sigerson and traveled the world. And
It's always from a story.
They are from Minnesota, and most of them were Scandinavians. And there's lots of Scandinavians. So it was a lot for that.
We need more young people.
It was a Norwegian experience. Yeah. You wouldn't be the youngest. The youngest joined us when he was 90. And now he's just out of college, I think, or just in his senior year.
Thank you for the great really good.
Thank you.
And thanks for giving up your seats. Yes, thank you so much. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
NorwegianExplorers.org will get you there.
Excellent performance, Tom. I took some pictures. Kim took some video. They're going to go watch. They said they'll see you in there. Yeah, we're going to go to the exhibit too.
You haven't seen it. So that's
This one. Yeah.
Good job. It's fine.
I think you're right about the first time. I had to accept the piano, so I wondered if it was the piano. It was extremely confusing.
It's all right. Okay, so
But
hopefully.
the second one